What's good, YouTube? Miguel here with Perfectly Engineered Reptiles. Wanted to bring up a follow-up to our last video. So if you haven't watched our last video, we'll put a link in the description. And it was about the powers of superpowers, in breeding projects. And similarly, we want to talk about allelics. Now, he is not an allelic, but he's probably one of my favorite snakes to hold. So what is an allelic? An allelic, a lot of people will say, acts like a super. In a way it does, and I understand why that description's there, but I do think it's kind of an unfair description to what an allelic is. So as we discussed in the super videos, and I'll recap real brief, ball pythons inherit two separate DNA strands, one from their mother and one from their father, and that on the locus of their genes, if you have two genes at the same location, but they're different genes, that's an allelic. A super is when they're the same. So probably the most famous version of allelics are the Bell complex snakes. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the lesser, the butter, the Mojave, the phantom, the Russo, the special, the bamboo. And what those are, when you breed those together, 25% of the time, you will end up with an all-white snake with blue eyes, or some rough version of it. In truth, the only one that I know of is the butter lesser, that no matter what you mix it with, you always get an all-white snake. Mojave kind of has like a darker purple head, purple passions and things like that. So you don't always end up, but you have the potential to make an all-white snake with blue eyes. Probably one of the more famous ones. So you could end up with a lesser Mojave, all-white snake. Breeding that snake, you cannot make a normal. 50% of the offspring will end up as Mojave, and 50% of the offspring will end up as lesser. So powerful breeding combos, and have some really remarkable visual appearances. So we will throw up a couple of pictures, but not every one, just to give you an idea of what the power of an allelic snake is. And before we do that, we did want to discuss a little bit about what's the benefit of having allelic snakes into your breeding projects, and what's the potential downsides, because there are a couple, not too many, but there are a couple. So some of the benefits of having an allelic. This guy is crazy snake, choked me out. This is Falcor, by the way. He's the one who started it all for us. I'll show you, just to give you a size comparison, guys. So he does have the corkscrewing, and you can kind of see it. You don't have to comment and let me know the part about the spiders, but still doesn't affect his eating. Beautiful kid. The benefits of having an allelic are you can't make a normal. They're going to be one or the other. So, some of the more common, least expensive ones. It's not like you have to spend a bunch of money, guys, to get into these. You can do fire and vanilla, which they call the vanilla scream. Like I said, bells. You can get some of the bells for probably $400, maybe even less in your local shows or something, and have, some lesser Mojaves or whatever. The bamboo ones, because the bamboo is a newer gene in the Bell complex, they tend to be a little bit more, but, and then that when you breed them, if you breed them to a normal, you're going to get 50% Mojaves, 50% lessers, or whatever it is. So there are some rather inexpensive ones that you would definitely want to have into a breeding rotation. And this guy right here, we're hoping eventually he'll get us an all-white snake. He's currently breeding with our lesser Enchi, so hoping to get our lesser. It's actually a super, not an allelic, but one of the other benefits of having them are value-wise. They tend to hold their value. They tend to, like, as an adult, that's a pretty strong breeder, and people will pay you for that if it outlives its breeding purposes. And that kind of rolls us into some of the downsides of having allelics. Just straight allelics eventually will end a usefulness in any continuous breeding project, because you're going to get to the point where you've gotten enough out of that gene. We'll take a fire vanilla. Those are two beautiful genes, but eventually producing enough fire and vanillas, you just won't have a reason to add more into the collection. You'll want to expand your collection. You'll want to add genes. So eventually they do kind of hinder or pigeonhole what you can do with them. And gone long enough, you probably wouldn't even need to breed them unless it's some high-end, if You have some allelic, like crazy new gene that, we found out what spot nose and chocolate were allelic. That being a newer one, you could probably breed that for years and years and years and be just fine. So what are some of the allelics that we wanted to show you and their different complexes? So obviously the most common one is the all-white snake with the blue eyes, the blue-eyed leucistics. We'll show you a lesser Mojave, only because that tends to be the most popular one, and it's because it's the purest white with no issues. We do have some issues where the super lessers, which is really the most white, has micro eyes. Nothing wrong with ball python, just smaller eyes. So the most common one that people buy for the all-white snake is the lesser Mojave. One of the other allelic complexes is the super stripe complex, sometimes called the yellow belly complex. And that one is the yellow belly. Cheating on my cheat notes, that's why I'm looking down, guys. Yellow belly, asphalt, or asphalt for you Canadians, flare, gravel, spark, spectre, and some people say orange belly too. I don't know much about the orange belly gene, guys, but that's where you see those highways and those freeways, which are yellow belly, gravel, or asphalt. You get those super stripes where you get the yellow belly with the spectre and the spark. You can do spark to gravel, asphalt, but yellow belly seems to be the one that ties a lot of them in. So that's why sometimes you'll hear yellow belly complex. Probably more famous ones are the freeways. So here's a freeway. And if you want to see the difference, because there tend to be, and there's a lot of variation in these, here's a highway. And like I said, all over the map, they can be brighter, lighter, darker, but you get the idea. All right. So moving on to the next one, big popular one is the black-eyed leucistics, and we kind of hit on that a little bit. We'll show you right off the bat. Here's a vanilla scream, probably the most common black-eyed leucistic. But for those of you keeping track, it's fire, vanilla, disco, bright, flame, sulfur, and then some people say ember is a different line of sulfur because the super has the dots, sauce, and lemonback. The most common genes in there obviously are fire, vanilla, and disco. We've all heard of the vanilla scream and the disco inferno, which is disco fire. Those are allelic animals. You saw the picture of the vanilla scream. Beautiful animals, cheap, inexpensive. If you're just starting out, you'd have no problem jumping right into one of those and kind of going with it. One of the other ones, and probably our favorite here at Perfectly Engineered Reptiles, is the 8-ball complex. And the 8-ball complex is black pastel, cinnamon, enchi, het red axanthic, Lori, and Huffman. We don't have a Lori. We would like to get it, but here would be an 8-ball, which is a black pastel cinnamon. As you can see, it's a very dark snake, and that is this appeal to us. No particular reason, and there's some beautiful bright snakes, and we'll probably make some of those, but soft spot for the dark snakes here. Those dark morphs don't get enough love in our opinion, and 8-balls, just beautiful snakes, powerful breeders, and definitely gonna be a part of our collection. Probably the most popularly represented in our collection over time. One of the other ones, and it kind of gets a lot of flack, is the spider, what they call the spider complex. So the spider complex is the blackhead, the spider, of course, champagne, hidden gene woma. The problem with this complex, actually, guys, is that for the most part, you can't make super forms. They can't breed them together. There seems to be a lot of genetic defects. Super spider is not good. Super champagne, not good. You can take a blackhead to a spider and even reduce the wobble, or actually eliminate the wobble. The problem is you eliminate the spider pattern and you just end up with a normal looking ball python. So spider complex. We now know that spot nose and chocolate are allelic. Justin Kabolka proved that out recently. And the last one is the only recessive allelic complex that I know. And it's albino mixed with candino, or candy, or toffee. And you can make a toffino or a candino. So this will be a candino. Candy is the more popular of the genes, but most people believe that toffee and candy are just different lines of the same gene. So Candino, real pretty. Out of the egg, they look like albinos, and you actually have to wait a couple of sheds to start getting those colors that show you the candy. So yeah, beautiful snakes, powerful breeders. As you can see, albino is super strongly influenced, and it's probably the most dominant gene in all ball pythons as far as visual representation. So anyway, talked about some of the stuff that we're gonna make. Would love to hear what you guys have as far as allelic complexes. Thoughts on maybe some of the ones that still could be. You know, ball python is a hobby guided trade. We are all learning together. That's how we're figuring this out. So what allelics do you like, and how would you want to take this? And as always, if you haven't liked, shared, and subscribed, please do hit that bell notification for when we drop these awesome videos. And then if you're not following on Instagram, please do it perfectly _engineer_reptiles. And as always, guys, keep moving and take care of your ball pythons. See you next time.